I'm going to teach you how to sew clamshells two ways, whether you want to hand sew or machine sew. I've got you covered in this tutorial that goes from soup to nuts, basting, cutting, preparing, sewing, finishing. Everything you ever wanted to know about sewing clamshells. And the only thing that you need to decide is whether you want to do it on your sewing machine or on the couch while watching Netflix. And if clamshells aren't your thing, then hey, you can be like my daughter and call them dragon scales. Dun, 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 dun. And if this is your first time here, my name is Matthew of Mixed Domestic. My pronouns are they, them. This is an inclusive sewing and crafting space. And I love everything about sewing and crafting. And when I learn something, I want to share it with you in a way that's hopefully approachable and brings you in. And let's get ready to sew. So grab your popcorn and let's learn how to do some clamshells. So for this clamshell project, I am using Patrick Luz's Glisten collection, which I have this pre-cut in my shop and also yardage, and then 2-inch clamshells, which I also have in my shop. And then I'm going to glue base, so I have Soline glue and a rotary cutter to cut from the fabric. I cut 3-inch strips here because I prefer a little bit more seam allowance, but you can absolutely use a jelly roll, which I also have in my shop. Since this is a 2-inch, this is 2.5. It'll leave a 1/4-inch seam allowance. It's plenty to get the job done, and you have a lot of fabric left over. In a clamshell project, when you use applique stitch, the very first color or top, you don't need to cut out the shapes because it will be affixed onto this. So I just need the top strip, and the first shapes to cut out are going to be this gorgeous silver. So I'll cut out the shapes of these. In order to not totally wreck my mat, the most layers of fabric that I'm going to cut through at a time are 2. Since there's curvature, if I put too much force in it to get through more layers of fabric, it could put a big divot in the mat. And I know it's self-healing, but I prefer it not to cause any damage. So I'm just going to start here, going this way. And I'm just going to cut the curve. Like so. Ta-da. Like here, okay? And then I want about that much left over, so I will go ahead and like so. Then boom. And boom. Another option, if you don't want to use a mat or you don't have a rotary cutter, is you can place this on here. Let me do it to where it's on the back. I'm only using a Sharpie so you can see, but any kind of pen would work, and you can like estimate the curve. Like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all going to be part of the seam allowance. You're not going to see it. And then cut that out with scissors. And then for each row, you're going to need 8 of each color. Other than the silver, if you're following the pattern, and I do 2 rows of that to frame it. Now it's time to prep the clamshells. The first thing that I do is just center this here using Soline glue. It's specifically designed for EPP. A tip that I do with my Soline glue is I'll pop it in the freezer for like 30 minutes before I use it, and it hardens it to where I don't use as much glue and it lasts a lot longer. And I'm just going to put a line. Like so. I'll use more than I normally do so you can actually see the line. And put some on the fabric here. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. And then I will start right here because I want that kind of to be up and down. And then just every couple of millimeters, just press and press and press. Go back and do this one. Press and press and press. Like so. Then I usually do that just so it stays super flat. And that's one. And so I'll do 7 more of this color, and I'll continue doing all of the colors, and then I will get started on showing you how to affix this and create your clamshell panel. Now I'm ready to get started. I've cut roughly a 17.5-inch strip by 3 inches of this black, which is the top. And then I have my 8 clamshells here. One other thing that I do before I will affix these on here is I'm going to use the iron to get rid of some of these little ridges, to flatten it out as much as possible. So I got my iron on. This will just cause it to lay flatter. See how it's a Flatosaurus Rex now. I'll do that with all of my clamshells on the back. Now I am going to start this next row just so it has the illusion that these are clamshells by cutting this one in half. So this is going to start as a half clamshell. Boop. Right here. And I'll attach these last. I get to start with the center here since it's going to be an odd number. There'll be 7 full clamshells and then 2 half clamshells here. So now with the clamshell, I love Roxanne's Glue Basted because I really love this little micro tip. But you can use Elmer's glue, washable. You can get micro tips for there just because it leaves just a little bit. See? This washes out, so it's not a permanent situation. I'm going to put this right in the center. Ta-da. Right there. And then now, I'm going to take the iron, and I'm going to heat set it in place. I'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's enough. It's not going anywhere. So I'll place this back down. And I will go ahead and glue baste the rest here and heat set it before I get to stitching. Things here, as you can see, I'm not putting the glue towards the edge. I didn't do that with the glue basting of the shape onto the fabric here or placing this on here because I don't want there to be any glue residue on the edges. It'll make it harder to sew through. Then here, how I'm placing this is I can feel where the paper is with my thumb and finger. And I kind of want that to be the overlap point right here. Otherwise, there'll be some gaps. That happened on my first one that I did. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I should be doing here. So this will make it clamshell-tastic all the way across to where there won't be a gap in between. And since there's no seam allowance on this side, like if you just want to make sure that it's the right size, then really try hard to get it straight up and down. You might have to move it a little bit. Now that this is all affixed and basted, it's time to get to stitching. Let me get my thread and my needle, and I'll show you on the other side. I have my favorite tools for hand sewing. I have a thimble pad here. I do need a needle threader now that my eyesight is starting to go. I love EPPing with Wonderfill Deco Bob, and I'm going to use matching thread to the clamshell that I'm actually sewing, and then some Thread Magic thread conditioner. Love this stuff. It helps keep the projects from knotting up as I'm using it. And I prefer milliner size 9, but I'm going to use a big whopping milliner for y'all so that you can actually see the stitches and where the needle's going. Let's get started. I like to double up my thread. Always have. Not necessary with this because it's polyester and it's super strong, but it just makes me happy. And then with the thread, if you can see it, I just loop it right over like that. So essentially the thread is in half, and then I do that. And then with my Thread Magic, just get that in there. There we go. I'm going to start on this side. And the first thing that I do, I don't tie a knot on the end of my thread, but I'm going to tie a knot directly into the fabric. Coming through the back, see, like here. I'm catching the lip of this just because. You don't have to for this first knot. Leave a little bit of a tail. Then I'm going to go back through. Also catching the lip. Different spot here. And then I am going to double knot onto the fabric so it doesn't move. I found sometimes if I do knot the end of the thread that it will go through, and then I'll find the end of the thread like over here as opposed to the starting point. That's just a tip that helps me. And then I'm going to go back through, hopefully catching the lip. Ta-da. And that's the applique stitch. The applique stitch is all about catching the lip. So from where it exited, right here, I'm not going to go through the actual clamshell fabric. I'm just going to move right on the side of that, go down into the base fabric, and then I want to come back up the base fabric, and then from this point, I want it to catch the lip of the clamshell fabric. See, like that? And then I pull through. Ta-da! And then I will do the same thing from where it exited the clamshell fabric. I'm going to go right to the side of it. So I'm not going back through the clamshell fabric, just going into that base fabric. Scooching the needle 3 to 5 millimeters. It's coming back out. And then from that exit point of the base fabric, I'm going to catch the lip of the clamshell right on the edge. Ta-da. And see, you can't see the stitches. It's pretty neat. Then one more time. Not going into clamshell fabric, but where it exited, I'm going to go into that base fabric. And then move the needle 3 to 5. See it? And then from the exit point of the base fabric, I'm going to catch the lip of the clamshell fabric. And I'm not catching the paper, it's just the fabric. That's why I didn't put any glue on the edge anywhere. Ta-da. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get to this point, and I'll show you what I do. So now that I'm to the end here, what I'm going to do before I start on the next clamshells, I'm going to secure a knot on the back, kind of like I did here. I'm just going to go right here, because we're beyond the paper. So the paper it ends right there. We're beyond the paper. So this is into the seam allowance. Pull it here. I am just going to go, I don't know, move a couple millimeters, like so, into the fabric. And then put the needle through this loop, and that's just going to secure that stitch in place. I'll take the needle, go back through towards the front, hopefully catching the lip of the next clamshell. And then now I'm going to do the applique stitch over this entire clamshell. I'll show you this first one, but it's going right to the side of that. Right. Coming back out, see? Catching the lip. Like so, exiting. And then I'll go up. And this is what I'm going to do to all of the clamshells, all the way across here until I get to the end. And then I'll start the next row, just so you can see what the stitches look on the back. Ooh, see? Ta-da, the gorge. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And if you wanted to make things a little less bulky and easier to sew and stitch, you can remove the papers. Since everything's glue basted on here, I'm just going to use the needle to get into here and loosen up where the basting was between the paper and the fabric. And then it'll come right out. See? Boop. Ta-da. You can do that all the way across, so then you can move this around if you needed to whenever you wanted to sew. But let's say you don't want to hand sew, like me, because I've already made one of these and I appliqued the entire thing, and my daughter's already claimed that you wanted to machine sew. So yeah, go for it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to edge stitch it. Let me get in closer. Have my walking foot on. A standard foot would be fine too. And just follow the curve. Like so. There are various decorative stitches you can use too on a machine, like a blanket stitch. Once you get to that intersection point, you can just rotate it Ta-da. And go back up. You don't need to love hand sewing or want to hand sew in order to enjoy these projects. There's always a way to bring a machine in. Ooh, my machine was like, yes. And as you can see, when I get to the intersection point, I leave the needle down, lift up the foot, rotate, in case you've never done that before. So now it is time for the next layer. See? Machine stitching, it's fine, it's fine. If you don't want a portable project that you can take with you and you want to get it done, it's an option. But it's going to be the same process. These have already been pre-flattened with the iron. Going to use my Roxanne's glue basted. Going to use one of these to show where the end would be so that I can then put the ruler on there, because that's where I want it to line up. And create a straight line. And now I have the line from which I will attach the next layer. Instead of gluing the pieces, I'm going to put the glue directly on here so that I do not glue the mat and then put the piece on here. Ta-da, ta-da. And now this next layer is ready to either applique stitch if you wanted a hand sewing project, or to take this over to the sewing machine to get your stitch on. But first, let us remove the paper. I'm switching to this because it bent the needle, and we don't need to bend a needle if we don't need to. And if any of these are ever stubborn, if you heat set it a little bit, kind of wakes up that glue and makes it easier to unstick. And look, you can totally reuse these. And then I am going to totally trust my gut, since I kind of on a whim decided that I was going to machine sew this and show you an option. I got some woven interfacing that I am going to use here and just, oh yeah, ta-da. Just to give some security to this so it doesn't start to like move around and shift. Can you heat set a little from the front? And then flip it over. Here we go. This will make it a lot easier to maneuver on the sewing machine. But if you don't have interfacing, you can just use like another piece of fabric on the back when you get started. So the first pass you take to the sewing machine, just use that. And it's gonna allow it to be a little bit more structured whenever you sew, because over here it gets a little funky, and I could just imagine this like fanning out. Now I'm gonna get started and do the same thing. An edge stitch, I changed this to a matching pink of the wonderful Deco Bob. I can already tell that this was the right choice. So much easier to maneuver. Gorgeous. So I'm going to do this all the way, and then I'll show you fixing the next layer, and just keep going until you finish the pillow. Either way, appliquing it or machine sewing. Now it's time for the next row. Gonna do the same thing. I'm not going to show you every row. This will be the final one, but just so that you can see the routine of it right here. So place this here. Get an idea where the next one needs to go. Line that up. Throw the paper, and we can go ahead and do the next layer. And the next color in place, like so. And then if you're gonna machine sew all of this instead of hand sewing it, don't forget to remove the paper before you take it to the sewing machine. We are on the last row, and I just wanted to show you a couple things. So the very last set of clamshells, I don't cut out this divot. They look like tombstones, I guess, to me, that are rounded off at the top. And I've left it the natural length just in case I need to cut them off. And I'll place them on here like tombstones. So that's number one. And so if you were going to hand sew this or applique stitch it, you're good to go with this. But then with machine sewing, which I'm doing with this second round, I discovered it's a lot easier to just take out the paper beforehand and then press it once on the back for a little bit and then back on the front. If you have a clapper, then this is where you would use a clapper, place it on there for a little bit, but let it cool down and then glue base it on here. So you don't have to glue base it, then yank out the paper with the interfacing. It was creating an extra issue. So I was like, let's just do this. So I just wanted y'all to see this on a regular foot, because you don't need a walking foot to accomplish this. I don't know, I get lazy about changing my feet. And I use it for another project. But yeah, actually it works a lot easier to edge stitch, and you can see better using a standard foot than a walking foot. So I'm just getting along the edge. Not going too fast because I want to get as close as possible, and I put my readers on finally, so oh my gosh, I'm getting super close. There we go. Once I'm finished with this pass, then we'll see the completed panel. So the final thing to do with this one is to square it up. I believe it is a 16 by 16 square, but let me square up the long sides first. They should be pretty square already. So yes, this is 16. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave a 1/4 inch here. And then this should be fine. Yeah, this is gonna be great. Ta-da! Like so. Now let's look at the difference between the two. So this was the first one where I hand stitched the whole thing. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Loved it. It was something I could do while watching Netflix with my family. But as you can see here, I wasn't as focused on making sure there was no gap. And so it happened in a couple places, which is totally fine. But what it did is it ended up, this square was 16.5 by 16.5, whereas this one ended up being 16 by 16. So just have that awareness. And this is what it looks like with the stitches. Like so. Which I matched the stitches, and I used a Deca Ball, which is a polyester pretty thin. I think it's 80 weight thread. And they look gorge. Like right next to each other. I don't know, do y'all have a preference? Other than the size difference, like from far away, can't really tell. So it depends on whether you want to be by your sewing machine or you want to be on your couch watching Netflix with the family. But now you have two different ways to enjoy making clamshells. So I hope you enjoyed this video of learning how to sew clamshells 2 ways. This rainbow gradient is gorgeous. It's Patrick Luz's Glisten fabric, which you can find in my shop. The link's in the description below. Anytime you can add shimmer to a fabric, why not, right? What a beautiful way to showcase this range. And it's not like my daughter doesn't appreciate and love everything that I do. But I was only 1/3 of the way into my first one, and she already claimed it for herself. So definitely this is a winner chicken dinner because my daughter has great taste. If you dig my vibe, make sure to subscribe. Hit that notification bell to get notified anytime a new video comes out. Until next time, happy sewing.